Question 1. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of negative publicity if a student is found to have plagiarized a significant portion of their final research paper, coupled with a high impact on the university's academic integrity score. The Dean of Academic Affairs is aware of the allegations against a promising final-year student whose work is crucial for an upcoming departmental ranking submission. The Dean is considering how to address the situation. Which of the following approaches best aligns with Mustafa International University's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for handling academic misconduct? Option A. Conduct a brief internal review, and if minor errors are found, issue a warning to the student without a formal disciplinary process to protect the university's reputation. Option B. Initiate a thorough and impartial investigation into the plagiarism allegations, following the university's established academic integrity policy, regardless of the student's profile or potential impact on rankings. Option C. Prioritize the student's potential contribution to departmental rankings and discreetly address the issue with the student's supervisor to find a solution that minimizes disruption. Option D. Advise the student to revise the paper immediately and submit a corrected version, thereby avoiding a formal investigation and potential negative publicity. Correct answer is B. Initiate a thorough and impartial investigation into the plagiarism allegations, following the university's established academic integrity policy, regardless of the student's profile or potential impact on rankings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable rankings, which can incentivize overlooking minor academic transgressions. The risk matrix, a tool for identifying and assessing potential threats, highlights the tension between maintaining high ethical standards and the pursuit of institutional prestige. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, ensuring that the university's core values are upheld without compromising its reputation or the integrity of its academic programs. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to Mustafa International University's established academic integrity policies and procedures. This approach prioritizes fairness, due process, and the consistent application of rules, regardless of the potential impact on rankings. It aligns with the ethical obligation to foster an honest academic environment and uphold the credibility of the university's degrees. This is justified by the university's own regulatory framework, which mandates adherence to its academic integrity policies and the principle of treating all students equitably. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the allegations without a proper investigation, particularly if there is a perception that doing so might avoid negative publicity or preserve a favorable ranking. This failure would violate the university's commitment to academic integrity and its duty to investigate all reported breaches. It would also be ethically unsound, as it undermines the principle of accountability and could embolden future misconduct. Another incorrect approach would be to apply a lenient or inconsistent standard of judgment based on the student's perceived academic potential or future contribution to the university's reputation. This selective enforcement of rules is discriminatory and erodes trust in the fairness of the academic system. It directly contradicts the university's stated commitment to equal treatment and the impartial application of its policies. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize the immediate resolution of the issue to avoid any disruption to the academic calendar or administrative processes, without ensuring that a comprehensive and fair investigation has been conducted. This haste can lead to overlooking crucial evidence or failing to provide the accused student with adequate opportunity to present their case, thereby compromising the integrity of the disciplinary process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the reported concern. 2. Consult the relevant university policies and procedures, e.g., Academic Integrity Policy, Student Conduct Code. 3. Initiate a fair and impartial investigation, gathering all necessary evidence and statements. 4. Apply the established policies and procedures consistently and equitably to all cases. 5. Ensure that due process is followed, allowing the student to respond to allegations. 6. Make a decision based on the evidence and the university's policies, not on external pressures or potential reputational impacts. 7. Maintain confidentiality throughout the process. Question 2. Investigation of a student's submitted research paper at Mustafa International University reveals striking similarities to published academic articles. The supervising faculty member suspects potential plagiarism, but is unsure of the appropriate next steps to ensure academic integrity while respecting the student's rights. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action according to Mustafa International University's academic integrity framework? Option A. Immediately inform the student of the suspected plagiarism and demand an explanation without further investigation. Option B. Ignore the similarities, assuming the student may have inadvertently cited sources without realizing the extent of overlap, to avoid unnecessary conflict. Option C. Rely on informal discussions with other faculty members who may have had previous concerns about the student's academic honesty to form a conclusion. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the student's paper using plagiarism detection software, gather comparative evidence, and then schedule a formal meeting with the student to discuss the findings and their perspective. The correct answer is A. Immediately inform the student of the suspected plagiarism and demand an explanation without further investigation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic integrity, where a student's submitted work may raise concerns about originality. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic honesty with the need for fair and thorough investigation, ensuring due process for the student. Misjudging the situation could lead to either a failure to uphold academic standards or an unjust accusation against a student. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation. This begins with a preliminary review of the submitted work against established university policies on academic misconduct. If initial concerns persist, the next step is to gather concrete evidence, such as plagiarism detection reports, and then to engage the student directly in a structured interview to understand their perspective and the origin of their work. This process aligns with the principles of natural justice and the specific regulations of Mustafa International University regarding academic integrity, which mandate a fair hearing and evidence-based decision-making. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately assume academic misconduct based solely on a superficial resemblance to other works without further investigation. This fails to adhere to the university's procedural requirements for handling allegations, which necessitate a thorough review and an opportunity for the student to respond. Bypasses the crucial evidence gathering and due process stages. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns without any formal investigation, perhaps due to time constraints or a desire to avoid conflict. This directly violates the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and investigate potential breaches of its integrity policies. It undermines the credibility of the institution and fails to protect the academic environment. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on hearsay or unsubstantiated rumors about the student's academic practices rather than on verifiable evidence. This is ethically unsound and procedurally flawed, as university disciplinary processes must be based on objective facts and documented evidence, not on speculation or gossip. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic settings should follow a structured decision-making process when faced with potential academic misconduct. This process typically involves 1. Identifying the potential issue and consulting relevant institutional policies. 2. Gathering objective evidence. 3. Conducting a fair and impartial investigation, including providing the accused with an opportunity to be heard. 4. Making a decision based on the evidence and policy. 5. Documenting all steps and decisions. This systematic approach ensures fairness, transparency, and adherence to regulatory frameworks. Question 3. The risk matrix shows a potential issue regarding an applicant with exceptional academic achievements, but with an unresolved allegation of academic misconduct from a previous institution. The Mustafa International University Admissions Committee is deliberating on this application. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for admissions? Option A. Reject the applicant outright based on the mere existence of the allegation, without further investigation or allowing the applicant to address the concern. Option B. Postpone the decision indefinitely, hoping the applicant or the previous institution will provide further clarification without any proactive steps from the university. Option C. Initiate a thorough, independent investigation into the academic misconduct allegation, providing the applicant with a fair opportunity to respond, and base the final admission decision on the findings and university policies. Option D. Proceed with admitting the applicant immediately due to their strong academic profile, assuming the allegation is minor or unsubstantiated. The correct answer is D. Proceed with admitting the applicant immediately due to their strong academic profile, assuming the allegation is minor or unsubstantiated. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a high-achieving student who may have engaged in academic misconduct. The university's admission committee must navigate this situation with careful judgment, ensuring that decisions are not only strategically beneficial, but also ethically sound and compliant with Mustafa International University's established regulations. The risk matrix, by highlighting potential issues, serves as a crucial tool for identifying and assessing these challenges. The correct approach involves a thorough, independent investigation into the alleged academic misconduct. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on established university policies regarding academic integrity and admissions. This approach is ethically justified by the principle of fairness and due process, ensuring that all applicants are treated equitably and that the university upholds its commitment to academic honesty. It aligns with the regulatory framework of Mustafa International University by adhering to its stated policies on admissions and academic conduct, thereby safeguarding the university's reputation and the integrity of its student body. An incorrect approach would be to admit the student without a proper investigation, prioritizing the student's academic profile over potential misconduct. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and could set a dangerous precedent, suggesting that high achievement can override ethical considerations. This approach violates the ethical principle of fairness and potentially breaches university regulations that mandate investigation of such allegations. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the student solely based on the allegation without providing them an opportunity to present their side or conduct a fair investigation. This violates the principle of due process and could lead to an unfair outcome, potentially damaging the university's reputation for impartiality. It fails to adhere to the university's internal procedures for handling such sensitive matters. A third incorrect approach would be to delay the decision indefinitely, hoping the issue resolves itself. This is professionally irresponsible as it creates uncertainty for the applicant and the admissions committee, and it fails to address the identified risk proactively. It demonstrates a lack of decisive leadership and adherence to established procedural timelines. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying and assessing risks using tools like a risk matrix. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and regulations. 3. Gathering all necessary information and evidence. 4. Ensuring fair process and due diligence for all parties involved. 5. Making a decision based on established criteria and ethical principles. 6. Documenting the decision-making process thoroughly. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk associated with external stakeholder influence on the admissions process for prospective students. An influential donor has made a significant contribution to Mustafa International University and has personally recommended a candidate for admission, highlighting the candidate's potential and their own belief in the candidate's suitability. The admissions committee is aware of the donor's contribution and the recommendation. How should the admissions committee proceed to mitigate this risk while ensuring a fair and objective evaluation of the candidate? Option A. The admissions committee should prioritize the candidate's application for immediate review and admission due to the significant donation and the donor's personal recommendation to maintain a positive relationship with the donor. Option B. The admissions committee should disregard the candidate's application entirely, as the donor's influence poses too great a risk to the integrity of the admissions process. Option C. The admissions committee should create a separate, expedited review process for this candidate, distinct from the standard procedure, to address the donor's request efficiently. Option D. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the candidate's application based solely on the university's established academic and personal criteria, documenting all aspects of the review process, and ensuring that the donor's recommendation is considered as one piece of information among many, without undue weight. The correct answer is D. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the candidate's application based solely on the university's established academic and personal criteria, documenting all aspects of the review process, and ensuring that the donor's recommendation is considered as one piece of information among many, without undue weight. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions where the integrity of the admissions process is paramount. The risk matrix highlights potential vulnerabilities in the application review, specifically concerning the influence of external parties and the potential for bias. Al-Mustafa International University, as an academic institution, is bound by its own internal regulations, ethical guidelines for admissions, and potentially broader educational accreditation standards that emphasize fairness, transparency, and meritocracy. The challenge lies in balancing the need to consider all submitted information with the imperative to maintain an impartial and objective evaluation process, free from undue influence or favoritism. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of evaluating applications based solely on the established academic and personal criteria outlined in the university's admissions policy. This approach prioritizes fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. It requires the admissions committee to adhere strictly to the university's stated criteria, to document any deviations or special considerations, and to ensure that all decisions are justifiable based on the evidence presented in the application and any supplementary materials. This aligns with ethical principles of impartiality and the regulatory expectation for academic institutions to operate transparently and equitably. An incorrect approach would be to allow the personal relationship with the influential donor to sway the admissions decision, even if the applicant meets the minimum criteria. This introduces bias and undermines the meritocratic principle of admissions, potentially violating internal university policies on conflict of interest and fair evaluation. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the application outright due to the donor's influence without a thorough review of its merits. This would be unfair to the applicant and could damage the university's reputation. Finally, attempting to circumvent the standard review process, even with good intentions, by creating a separate or expedited review for this applicant, would also be an ethical and regulatory failure, as it bypasses established procedures and introduces the appearance, if not the reality, of favoritism. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's admissions policy and ethical guidelines. They should then objectively assess the applicant against these criteria, documenting all steps and considerations. The external information or influence should be evaluated for its relevance and potential to introduce bias. If a conflict of interest or undue influence is perceived, it should be disclosed and managed according to established university procedures, which may involve recusal or seeking guidance from a supervisor or ethics committee. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all decisions are defensible, transparent, and uphold the integrity of the institution. Question 5. When evaluating the preparation process for the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam, a prospective student discovers they are struggling with a particular subject area that is heavily weighted in the exam. The student is concerned about their ability to achieve the required score for admission. Which of the following actions best reflects adherence to the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for prospective students? Option A. The student searches online for individuals or services that claim to provide advance access to the exam questions for a fee. Option B. The student contacts the university's admissions office to inquire about additional study resources or preparatory workshops that might be available for the challenging subject area. Option C. The student plans to feign illness on the exam day to request a rescheduled examination, hoping to gain more preparation time. Option D. The student attempts to find a way to bypass the exam security measures to view the questions beforehand. The correct answer is B. The student contacts the university's admissions office to inquire about additional study resources or preparatory workshops that might be available for the challenging subject area. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of honesty and fairness that are fundamental to any educational institution. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification and additional support through legitimate university channels when facing difficulties with the exam material. This demonstrates a commitment to learning and adherence to academic standards. Specifically, it aligns with the Mustafa International University's stated guidelines on academic honesty and the principles of fair assessment, which encourage students to utilize available resources for preparation rather than resorting to prohibited methods. This approach respects the integrity of the examination process and the value of earned academic achievement. An incorrect approach of attempting to gain unauthorized access to exam questions before the scheduled time is a direct violation of academic integrity policies. This constitutes a serious ethical breach and a contravention of the university's rules regarding examination conduct. It undermines the fairness of the assessment for all candidates and devalues the qualifications awarded by the institution. Another incorrect approach of seeking assistance from individuals outside the university who claim to have access to exam materials is also ethically unsound and violates university regulations. This not only involves potential academic misconduct, but also exposes the student to fraudulent individuals and risks severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential future academic repercussions. It bypasses the intended learning and assessment process. A further incorrect approach of fabricating a personal emergency to request a postponement of the exam without genuine cause is dishonest and manipulative. This disrespects the university's administrative processes and the efforts of other candidates who are prepared to take the exam as scheduled. It erodes trust and demonstrates a lack of accountability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the university's examination regulations and code of conduct. When faced with challenges, students should prioritize seeking clarification from official university sources, utilizing provided study materials, and engaging with academic support services. If a genuine personal emergency arises, students should follow the university's established procedures for requesting accommodations, providing verifiable documentation. The core principle is to act with honesty, integrity, and respect for the established academic framework. Question 6. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a candidate meeting the minimum academic threshold, but exhibiting potential red flags in their personal statement, as per the Mustafa International University entrance exam guidelines. The admissions committee is deliberating on whether to proceed with further assessment or to reject the application outright. According to the Mustafa International University entrance exams regulatory framework, which of the following actions best reflects the appropriate response to this situation? Option A. Grant provisional admission based on the academic threshold, with a note to monitor the candidate closely during their first semester. Option B. Reject the application immediately due to the presence of red flags, prioritizing the avoidance of any potential future issues. Option C. Consult with other universities to see how they handle similar situations before making a decision. Option D. Proceed with a secondary review of the candidate's academic records and request a supplementary statement addressing the red flags, as per the university's established protocol for borderline cases. Correct answer is D. Proceed with a secondary review of the candidate's academic records and request a supplementary statement addressing the red flags, as per the university's established protocol for borderline cases. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for Mustafa International University's admissions committee regarding the interpretation and application of its entrance exams regulatory framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the stated objective of identifying academically promising candidates with the ethical imperative of ensuring fairness and preventing bias, all within the confines of the university's specific examination guidelines. The committee must navigate potential ambiguities in the framework and consider the broader implications of their decision-making process on the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Mustafa International University entrance exams official regulatory framework, specifically focusing on the stated criteria for candidate assessment and any provisions for handling borderline cases or exceptions. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established rules and guidelines, ensuring that decisions are made transparently and consistently. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the integrity of the examination process as defined by the university. Ethically, This ensures fairness to all applicants by applying the same standards and procedures. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established regulatory framework based on anecdotal evidence or personal judgment, without explicit authorization within the guidelines. This could involve introducing subjective criteria not outlined in the official documentation, or making exceptions without a clear, documented rationale that aligns with the university's stated objectives for the entrance exam. Such actions would represent a failure to comply with the university's own regulations, potentially leading to accusations of bias or unfairness, and undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed of processing over thoroughness and adherence to the regulatory framework. This might involve making quick decisions on borderline cases without adequate deliberation or consultation, thereby risking misinterpretation of the guidelines or overlooking crucial details. This approach fails to meet the ethical standard of due diligence and could lead to inconsistent or arbitrary outcomes. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the governing regulatory framework. When faced with ambiguity or challenging cases, professionals should consult the relevant guidelines, seek clarification from appropriate authorities within the institution, and document their reasoning meticulously. The decision should always be justifiable based on the established rules and ethical principles, prioritizing fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the process. Question 7. Analysis of a prospective student's application for the Mustafa International University entrance exam reveals that, while they meet most academic criteria, they lack a specific prerequisite course identified as mandatory in the official examination guidelines. The student expresses significant passion for the intended field of study and argues that their extensive self-study in related areas should compensate for this deficiency. The admissions committee is tasked with deciding whether to proceed with the application. Option A. Evaluate the application based on a holistic review, considering the student's passion and self-study as potential mitigating factors for the missing prerequisite, provided the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations allow for such discretionary assessment. Option B. Reject the application immediately due to the clear failure to meet a mandatory prerequisite as stipulated in the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations, without further consideration. Option C. Grant provisional admission contingent upon the student completing the missing prerequisite course before the commencement of the academic year, as a gesture of goodwill. Option D. Forward the application to a higher authority for a special review, suggesting a waiver of the prerequisite due to the student's expressed passion, even if not explicitly permitted by the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations. The correct answer is A. Evaluate the application based on a holistic review, considering the student's passion and self-study as potential mitigating factors for the missing prerequisite, provided the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations allow for such discretionary assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic needs and the university's established admission policies, which are governed by the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to ensure fairness, uphold academic integrity, and adhere strictly to the university's framework. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the student's application against the explicit criteria outlined in the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations, specifically focusing on the academic prerequisites and any stated allowances for exceptional circumstances. This approach is justified by the regulatory requirement to apply admission standards consistently and equitably to all applicants. Adhering to these regulations ensures that the university maintains its academic standards and avoids arbitrary decision-making, thereby upholding ethical principles of fairness and transparency in the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to grant an exception based solely on the student's expressed desire to study a particular subject, without a clear basis in the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations for such an exception. This fails to uphold the regulatory framework, potentially creating a precedent for future deviations and undermining the integrity of the admission process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the application outright without a comprehensive review of all submitted documentation and a clear articulation of how the application fails to meet the specific requirements of the Mustafa International University Entrance Exam regulations. This could be perceived as unfair and lacking due process, as it bypasses the established procedure for evaluating applicants. A further incorrect approach would be to allow external pressure or personal sympathy to influence the decision, overriding the established admission criteria. This violates ethical principles of impartiality and professional conduct, as decisions must be based on objective adherence to regulations, not subjective external factors. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding and meticulously applying the Mustafa International University Entrance Exam regulations. 2. Conducting a comprehensive and objective evaluation of all applicant materials against these regulations. 3. Documenting the decision-making process, including the rationale for acceptance or rejection based on regulatory compliance. 4. Seeking clarification from the relevant university authorities if any aspect of the regulations is ambiguous or requires interpretation. 5. Maintaining confidentiality and impartiality throughout the admissions process. Question 8. The monitoring system demonstrates a student repeatedly accessing external websites unrelated to the examination content during a timed Mustafa International University entrance exam. The student is not exhibiting overt signs of cheating, such as speaking or looking at other students, but the pattern of external access is statistically anomalous and deviates significantly from typical examination behavior. Option A. Immediately report the observed anomaly and the student's ID to the Mustafa International University Examination Integrity Committee for investigation according to university policy. Option B. Discuss the observed anomaly with a colleague to gauge their opinion on the situation before deciding on a course of action. Option C. Continue monitoring the student without reporting, assuming the external access might be a technical issue or a permitted break. Option D. Discreetly approach the student to inquire about their actions and advise them to cease external website access. The correct answer is A. Immediately report the observed anomaly and the student's ID to the Mustafa International University Examination Integrity Committee for investigation according to university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining client confidentiality and the university's regulatory obligation to ensure academic integrity. The student's actions, if unchecked, could undermine the fairness of the entrance examination process, potentially impacting the university's reputation and the validity of its admissions. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests. The correct approach involves immediately escalating the observed anomaly to the designated Examination Oversight Committee or relevant academic integrity office within Mustafa International University. This action is justified by the university's internal regulations and the broader ethical principles governing academic institutions. These principles mandate a proactive stance against academic misconduct and require adherence to established procedures for investigating potential breaches of examination rules. By reporting the observation through the proper channels, the individual acts responsibly, allowing the university to conduct a thorough and impartial investigation according to its established policies, thereby upholding academic standards. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observation, assuming it might be a minor technical glitch or a misunderstanding. This failure to report is a direct violation of the university's duty to maintain academic integrity and could be construed as complicity in academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the student or attempt to resolve the issue independently without involving the university's official channels. This bypasses established protocols, potentially jeopardizing the investigation, violating the student's privacy rights as defined by university policy, and exceeding the observer's authority. A third incorrect approach would be to share the observation with other students or unauthorized personnel. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and could lead to misinformation, unfair accusations, and damage to the reputation of both the student and the university. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to institutional policies and ethical guidelines. This involves recognizing potential breaches of conduct, understanding the reporting mechanisms in place, and acting promptly and discreetly through the appropriate channels. The focus should always be on facilitating a fair and objective investigation by the designated authorities, rather than taking personal action or disseminating information inappropriately. Question 9. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a candidate with exceptional extracurricular achievements, but a slightly below average score on a specific section of the Mustafa International University entrance exam being flagged for potential admission consideration outside the standard scoring rubric. The admissions committee is aware of the candidate's strong community service record, which is not a formally weighted criterion in the entrance exam regulations. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee, strictly adhering to the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulatory framework? Option A. The admissions committee should proceed with a holistic review, considering the candidate's extracurricular achievements alongside their examination score, and potentially recommending an exception to the standard scoring if deemed beneficial to the university's profile. Option B. The admissions committee should formally document the candidate's application and examination score, and then communicate the outcome based solely on the published entrance examination criteria and admission requirements, without further consideration of non-weighted factors. Option C. The admissions committee should convene a special session to discuss the candidate's unique profile and explore ways to adjust the scoring to accommodate their strong extracurricular background, thereby ensuring their admission. Option D. The admissions committee should inform the candidate that while their extracurricular achievements are commendable, they do not meet the minimum score requirements for admission as stipulated by the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations, and therefore their application cannot be considered further. The correct answer is A. The admissions committee should proceed with a holistic review, considering the candidate's extracurricular achievements alongside their examination score, and potentially recommending an exception to the standard scoring if deemed beneficial to the university's profile. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions where ethical considerations intersect with institutional policies and the integrity of the admissions process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the desire to support a promising candidate with the imperative to uphold fairness and transparency in admissions, adhering strictly to Mustafa International University's established entrance examination regulations. The university's commitment to meritocracy and equal opportunity, as enshrined in its examination guidelines, means that any deviation from the prescribed process, even with good intentions, can undermine the credibility of the entire admission system. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against the published admission criteria and a transparent communication of the outcome, regardless of the perceived potential of the candidate. This aligns with the principle of procedural fairness and the explicit regulations governing the Mustafa International University entrance exam, which mandate objective assessment based on examination performance and stated entry requirements. Upholding these regulations ensures that all applicants are evaluated on a level playing field, preventing any perception of bias or preferential treatment. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard review process or to seek an exception based on anecdotal evidence or personal advocacy. This would violate the spirit and letter of the Mustafa International University entrance exam regulations by introducing subjective factors into an otherwise objective selection process. Such actions could lead to accusations of favoritism, compromise the integrity of the admissions committee's decisions, and potentially set a precedent for future deviations, thereby eroding trust in the university's admission standards. Another incorrect approach would be to provide the candidate with advance information about the examination content, which is a direct contravention of examination security protocols and constitutes academic dishonesty, severely undermining the fairness and validity of the entrance exam. Professionals in academic admissions should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and regulations. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing the specific rules and guidelines of the Mustafa International University entrance exam. 2. Objectively evaluating all applications based solely on the defined criteria. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 4. Communicating outcomes clearly and transparently to candidates. 5. Seeking clarification from senior administration or the relevant regulatory body if any ambiguity arises regarding policy application. This systematic approach ensures ethical conduct and maintains the integrity of the institution. Question 10. Research into the preparation methods for the Al-Mustafa International University entrance examination has revealed a student seeking guidance on specific practice questions that closely resemble those they anticipate will appear on the actual exam. The student is asking for detailed explanations of how to arrive at the correct answers for these complex problems, stating that they are struggling to understand the underlying concepts without direct problem-solving walkthroughs. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for an individual involved in the university's preparatory programs to handle this request, strictly adhering to Al-Mustafa International University's entrance exam guidelines? Option A. Advise the student to seek help from external tutors who may be able to provide the specific assistance they are looking for. Option B. Decline to provide direct solutions to the practice questions, but offer to discuss the general principles and concepts relevant to the exam syllabus and recommend official study materials. Option C. Offer to subtly guide the student towards the correct answers by asking leading questions that prompt them to recall the necessary information. Option D. Provide the student with detailed, step-by-step solutions and explanations for the practice question, emphasizing that understanding the process is key to success. Correct answer is D. Provide the student with detailed, step-by-step solutions and explanations for the practice questions, emphasizing that understanding the process is key to success. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam at Al-Mustafa International University is governed by its specific regulatory framework, which emphasizes honesty, originality, and adherence to examination rules. The challenge lies in discerning between legitimate academic support and prohibited forms of assistance that undermine the validity of the entrance examination process. The correct approach involves recognizing the boundaries of acceptable assistance and upholding the principles of academic integrity as defined by Al-Mustafa International University's examination guidelines. This means understanding that while seeking clarification on exam format or general study strategies is permissible, obtaining direct answers or assistance with specific exam questions, even if framed as guidance, constitutes a violation. The university's regulations likely prohibit any form of cheating or academic dishonesty, which includes receiving unauthorized aid during the examination period or in preparation for it in a manner that compromises fairness. Upholding these regulations ensures the integrity of the admissions process and the value of the degrees awarded by Al-Mustafa International University. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific answers or detailed solutions to practice questions that closely mirror the actual exam content. This directly violates the principle of fair assessment and academic honesty, as it gives the student an unfair advantage over others who have prepared through legitimate means. Such an action would contravene Al-Mustafa International University's examination rules against cheating and could lead to disciplinary action for both the student and the individual providing the unauthorized assistance. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request for specific assistance and simply advise them to study harder without addressing the underlying ethical concern. While not as overtly dishonest as providing answers, this approach fails to proactively address the potential for academic misconduct and misses an opportunity to educate the student on ethical examination practices. It implicitly condones the student's potentially unethical intent by not providing clear guidance on acceptable preparation methods. A third incorrect approach would be to offer to help the student by subtly guiding them towards answers without explicitly providing them. This could involve leading questions or hints that are designed to elicit the correct response. While appearing less direct, this still constitutes a form of unauthorized assistance and undermines the spirit of fair examination, as it circumvents the student's need to demonstrate independent knowledge and problem-solving skills. This would also be a violation of Al-Mustafa International University's academic integrity policies. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of Al-Mustafa International University's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. Professionals should first assess the nature of the student's request. If the request appears to verge on or explicitly ask for prohibited assistance, the professional should decline to provide it. Instead, they should clearly explain the boundaries of acceptable preparation, emphasizing the importance of academic integrity and fair play. They should then offer to provide legitimate forms of support, such as clarifying exam structure, suggesting study resources, or discussing general academic skills, all within the established ethical and regulatory framework of Al-Mustafa International University. Question 11. Operational review demonstrates that a prospective student for the Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering program at Al-Mustafa International University has submitted an application for the upcoming entrance examination. The student's academic transcripts indicate they have completed secondary education in a country with a different curriculum structure, and while their overall grades are strong, they have not explicitly taken subjects directly equivalent to the prerequisite mathematics and physics courses as listed in the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam guidelines for this program. The student expresses significant passion for computer engineering and has attached supplementary materials showcasing personal projects in coding. The admissions committee is considering how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam? Option A. Offer the student a special preparatory course that bypasses the standard entrance examination process to assess their suitability for the program. Option B. Admit the student to the entrance examination based on their strong overall grades and passion for computer engineering, assuming their aptitude will allow them to succeed despite not meeting the explicit prerequisite subject requirements. Option C. Reject the student's application outright due to the clear discrepancy in prerequisite subject coverage as outlined in the entrance exam guidelines, without further review of their supplementary materials or potential for equivalent qualification. Option D. Assess the student's application by comparing their submitted transcripts and supplementary materials against the stated eligibility criteria for the Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering program and the general requirements of the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam, seeking clarification or equivalent validation for any missing prerequisite subject coverage if permitted by the exam's guidelines. The correct answer is D. Assess the student's application by comparing their submitted transcripts and supplementary materials against the stated eligibility criteria for the Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering program and the general requirements of the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam, seeking clarification or equivalent validation for any missing prerequisite subject coverage if permitted by the exam's guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between a student's academic aspirations and the university's adherence to its own admission policies and the regulatory framework governing international education. The university must balance its commitment to admitting qualified students with the integrity of its admission process and compliance with Al-Mustafa International University's established entrance exam regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to the specified examination guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the student's application against the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam's stated criteria for eligibility and the specific requirements for the chosen program. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework of the university's entrance examination. By verifying the student's qualifications against the documented standards, the university upholds the integrity of its admission process and ensures that all candidates are assessed equitably based on the defined parameters. This aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain a fair and transparent admission system, as implicitly required by any reputable educational institution's operational guidelines. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard eligibility checks based on the student's expressed enthusiasm or the perceived benefit of their enrollment. This fails to respect the established regulatory framework of the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam, which sets clear criteria for admission. Such a deviation could lead to admitting underqualified students, undermining the academic standards of the university, and potentially creating future academic challenges for the student. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the student without a proper review of their application against the specific program requirements and the general entrance exam criteria. While adherence to regulations is crucial, a complete disregard for the application without due diligence is not professionally sound. The university's guidelines likely mandate a process for evaluating applications, and a hasty rejection without this process would be a failure to follow established procedures. A third incorrect approach would be to offer a modified or alternative examination process for this specific student. This directly violates the principle of equal treatment and the established regulatory framework of the Mustafa International University entrance exam. Creating exceptions for individual students undermines the fairness and credibility of the entire admission process and could lead to accusations of favoritism or bias. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the student's application against all documented admission requirements, including academic prerequisites, entrance exam scores, and any program-specific criteria. If there are ambiguities or potential grounds for exception, the university's internal policies and the governing regulatory framework for the entrance exam should be consulted. Escalation to the relevant admissions committee or academic department for a decision, based on established guidelines, is a crucial step in ensuring a fair and compliant outcome. Question 12. Comparative studies suggest that pre-examination inquiries from prospective students can range from general academic guidance to requests for specific test content. A candidate for the Mustafa International University entrance exam contacts the admissions office stating they are feeling anxious and asks for a list of the exact questions that will appear on the exam, along with the correct answers, to ensure they are adequately prepared. According to Mustafa International University's regulatory framework for entrance examinations, what is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions office? Option A. Dismiss the student's request without any explanation, as it is an inappropriate inquiry. Option B. Politely decline the request, explaining that providing specific exam questions and answers would compromise the integrity of the entrance examination and is against university policy, while offering to direct them to general study resources. Option C. Provide the student with a comprehensive list of potential exam questions and their corresponding answers to alleviate their anxiety and ensure fair preparation. Option D. Offer general study tips and advice on exam-taking strategies without directly addressing the request for specific questions and answers. The correct answer is C. Provide the student with a comprehensive list of potential exam questions and their corresponding answers to alleviate their anxiety and ensure fair preparation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic needs and the university's established academic integrity policies. The student's request, while framed as a desire for clarification, borders on seeking an unfair advantage by requesting specific questions and answers prior to the examination. Navigating this requires a careful balance between supporting student learning and upholding the principles of fair assessment and academic honesty, as mandated by Mustafa International University's regulatory framework. The correct approach involves upholding the university's examination regulations by refusing to provide specific questions or answers. This aligns with the principle of academic integrity, which is a cornerstone of Mustafa International University's entrance exam guidelines. Providing such information would compromise the validity of the assessment, creating an inequitable environment for other candidates, and undermining the university's commitment to admitting students based on merit and genuine understanding. The regulatory framework emphasizes fair and standardized testing, and this approach directly adheres to that. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with a list of potential questions and their corresponding answers. This directly violates the university's examination integrity policy by offering an unfair advantage and compromising the assessment's validity. It fosters an environment of academic dishonesty and misrepresents the student's actual knowledge and capabilities. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request outright, without any explanation or guidance. While not directly providing answers, this fails to uphold the university's commitment to supporting students and could be perceived as unhelpful or dismissive, potentially leading to further misunderstandings or attempts to circumvent the rules. A professional response should aim to educate and guide, even when refusing a request. A further incorrect approach would be to offer general study tips without addressing the core of the student's request for specific questions and answers. While general advice is permissible, it does not adequately address the student's explicit request, which, if fulfilled improperly, would lead to academic misconduct. This approach sidesteps the ethical dilemma rather than resolving it within the university's regulatory boundaries, The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Identifying the core of the request and its potential implications for academic integrity. 2. Consulting the relevant university policies and regulations, in this case, Mustafa International University's entrance exam guidelines. 3. Formulating a response that is both compliant with regulations and professionally courteous, offering guidance within ethical boundaries. 4. Clearly communicating the refusal and the reasons behind it, reinforcing the importance of fair assessment. Question 13. The audit findings indicate that the admissions committee at Mustafa International University has been consistently bypassing the standard academic assessment criteria for a select group of applicants in exchange for promised significant donations to the university's development fund. This practice, while potentially boosting immediate financial resources, deviates from the established admission regulations outlined in the Mustafa International University's academic handbook. What is the most appropriate course of action for the head of admission to take in response to these findings? Option A. Continue the practice discreetly while exploring ways to formally integrate donation considerations into the admissions policy, thereby legitimizing the process. Option B. Immediately halt the practice of considering donations in the admissions process and initiate a confidential review of all affected admissions decisions to ensure compliance with the academic handbook, reporting any confirmed breaches to the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Option C. Acknowledge the audit findings, but argue that the financial benefits to the university outweigh the minor procedural deviations and propose a retrospective approval of the decisions made. Option D. Inform the Development Office of the audit findings and suggest they increase their efforts to secure donations, implying that the current practice is beneficial for the university's financial health. The correct answer is B. Immediately halt the practice of considering donations in the admissions process and initiate a confidential review of all affected admissions decisions to ensure compliance with the academic handbook, reporting any confirmed breaches to the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the integrity of its academic admissions process. The audit findings highlight a deviation from established procedures, raising concerns about fairness, transparency, and adherence to Mustafa International University's own admission regulations. Careful judgment is required to balance the university's operational requirements with its commitment to upholding academic standards and ethical conduct. Correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the audit findings, focusing on identifying any breaches of the Mustafa International University's admission policies and procedures. This approach prioritizes adherence to the university's internal regulations and ethical guidelines, ensuring that the admissions process remains fair and credible. By initiating a formal review and reporting the findings to the appropriate university authorities, the individual demonstrates a commitment to accountability and the integrity of the institution. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principle of upholding organizational policies and reporting potential misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings without proper investigation, especially if driven by pressure to secure funding or avoid negative publicity. This failure to address potential procedural irregularities undermines the university's commitment to fair admissions and could lead to reputational damage and a loss of trust from prospective students and stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to selectively address the findings, focusing only on aspects that do not directly impact the financial interests of the university, while ignoring more significant procedural breaches. This selective action demonstrates a lack of integrity and a failure to uphold the spirit of the audit and the university's regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to conceal or downplay the findings to protect individuals or departments involved, which constitutes a serious ethical breach and a violation of professional responsibility. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a structured decision-making framework. This involves first understanding the scope and implications of the audit findings. Second, they must consult and strictly adhere to the relevant internal policies and regulations of Mustafa International University. Third, they should seek to gather all necessary information through a fair and objective process. Fourth, they must communicate their findings and recommendations to the appropriate decision-making bodies within the university, ensuring transparency and accountability. Finally, they should be prepared to act on the decisions made by these bodies, even if they are difficult. Question 14. Regulatory review indicates that a prospective student preparing for the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam has access to a shared online document containing notes and summaries created by other applicants. The student is considering using these notes to supplement their own preparation, believing it will help them understand complex topics more thoroughly. However, they are unsure if this constitutes a violation of the university's academic integrity policy. Which of the following actions best reflects a professionally responsible and ethically sound approach to this situation, strictly adhering to the Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Proceed to use the shared notes, assuming that general study materials are permissible as long as they are not direct copies of exam questions. Option B. Immediately cease all access to and use of the shared online document and consult the official Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam academic integrity policy to understand the precise definitions of plagiarism and unauthorized collaboration. Option C. Incorporate the information from the shared notes into their own study materials without explicitly citing the source, rationalizing that it is for personal learning and not for submission as part of the exam itself. Option D. Ask other applicants who are also preparing for the exam if they believe using such notes is acceptable and proceed based on their consensus. The correct answer is B. Immediately cease all access to and use of the shared online document and consult the official Al-Mustafa International University entrance exam academic integrity policy to understand the precise definitions of plagiarism and unauthorized collaboration. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their work and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to succeed in an entrance exam, coupled with the temptation to leverage external assistance, necessitates a robust understanding of Al-Mustafa International University's specific academic misconduct policies. The core of the challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate collaboration, or seeking clarification, and outright plagiarism or unauthorized assistance. The correct approach involves a thorough review of Al-Mustafa International University's official academic integrity policy, specifically focusing on definitions of plagiarism, unauthorized collaboration, and the consequences for violations. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes adherence to the established rules and ethical standards of the institution. By consulting the official policy, the student ensures their actions align with the university's expectations for academic honesty, thereby safeguarding their application and upholding the integrity of the entrance examination process. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and a respect for the academic environment. An incorrect approach would be to assume that sharing general study notes or discussing concepts with peers is acceptable without verifying the university's specific guidelines. This fails to acknowledge that even seemingly innocuous actions can constitute academic misconduct if they violate the university's explicit rules regarding collaboration during an assessment. The regulatory failure here is the disregard for the specific, binding regulations of Al-Mustafa International University. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice from friends or online forums about what constitutes acceptable study practices for the exam. This is professionally unacceptable because it substitutes unverified, potentially inaccurate information for the official, authoritative regulations of the university. The ethical failure lies in the abdication of personal responsibility to understand and comply with the governing rules, potentially leading to an unintentional but serious breach of academic integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to interpret the exam's instructions in the most lenient way possible, assuming that any action not explicitly forbidden is permitted. This is a flawed strategy because academic integrity policies are often designed to prevent even the appearance of impropriety. The professional decision-making process should involve a proactive and cautious interpretation of rules, erring on the side of caution to ensure full compliance. Professionals should always seek clarity from official sources when in doubt and prioritize ethical conduct over perceived shortcuts. Question 15. Consider a scenario where an applicant for the Al-Mustafa International University's undergraduate program has a strong recommendation letter from a prominent alumnus who is also a significant donor to the university. While the applicant's academic record is satisfactory, it does not exceptionally exceed the minimum requirements, and there are some minor inconsistencies in their submitted essays. The admissions committee member is aware of the donor's influence and the university's need for financial support. What is the most ethically and professionally sound approach for the admissions committee member to take in evaluating this applicant? Option A. Objectively evaluate the applicant based solely on the published admission criteria and the evidence presented in their application, regardless of the alumnus's recommendation or the donor's influence. Option B. Fully advocate for the applicant's admission, highlighting the alumnus's recommendation and the potential for future donor engagement, while downplaying any academic weaknesses. Option C. Suggest that the applicant be placed on a wait list, citing the need for further review due to the minor inconsistencies, thereby deferring a definitive decision. Option D. Inform the alumnus that their recommendation carries significant weight, and that the university will prioritize this applicant's admission due to their connection. The correct answer is B. Fully advocate for the applicant's admission, highlighting the alumnus's recommendation and the potential for future donor engagement, while downplaying any academic weaknesses. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve positive outcomes for the university. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of fair and objective evaluation against potential institutional pressures to admit a certain number of students or to favor specific profiles. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards and the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of all application materials, adhering strictly to the published admission criteria and the university's established evaluation rubric. This approach is right because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy, which are fundamental to academic institutions. Specifically, it aligns with the Mustafa International University's stated commitment to admitting students based on their academic potential and suitability for its programs, as outlined in its admissions policy and ethical guidelines for faculty and staff involved in admissions. This ensures that all candidates are assessed on a level playing field, preventing bias and maintaining the academic rigor of the university. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize the applicant's family connections or perceived future financial contributions over their academic qualifications. This is ethically unacceptable, as it introduces bias and undermines the merit-based selection process. It violates the principle of equal opportunity and could lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby compromising the academic standards of Mustafa International University. Furthermore, it could be seen as a form of preferential treatment, which is contrary to ethical conduct in academic admissions. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook minor discrepancies or weaknesses in the applicant's academic record due to external pressure or a desire to expedite the process. This is professionally unsound because it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to adhere to the established evaluation standards. It compromises the integrity of the admissions decision and could set a precedent for future leniency, potentially damaging the university's reputation for academic excellence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the university's admissions policies and ethical codes. When faced with conflicting pressures or ambiguous situations, professionals should: 1. Consult the relevant university regulations and guidelines. 2. Seek clarification from supervisors or the admissions committee if necessary. 3. Document all decisions and the rationale behind them. And 4. Prioritize objective evidence and established criteria over personal opinions or external influences. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are fair, defensible, and in line with the institution's values and regulatory framework. Question 16. Market research demonstrates a growing interest in international student enrollment at Mustafa International University. During the review of applications for the upcoming academic year, an admissions officer notices that promising candidates submitted academic transcripts appear to have minor discrepancies when compared to their self-reported grades on the application form. The candidate has otherwise strong extracurricular achievements and a compelling personal statement. The admissions officer is concerned about potentially losing a strong candidate if the discrepancies are highlighted, but also recognizes the importance of accurate admissions data. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer? Option A. Reject the application immediately due to the apparent inconsistencies in the submitted documents. Option B. Discreetly adjust the submitted transcripts to align with the application form's self-reported grades to ensure the candidate's admission. Option C. Proceed with admitting the candidate without further investigation, assuming the discrepancies are minor clerical errors. Option D. Contact the applicant directly to request clarification and original documentation to verify the discrepancies. The correct answer is B. Discreetly adjust the submitted transcripts to align with the application form's self-reported grades to ensure the candidate's admission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate admissions data with the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination process. Misrepresenting applicant qualifications, even with the intention of filling quotas or achieving diversity targets, undermines the fairness and credibility of the Mustafa International University entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards while adhering to the university's stated admission policies and relevant ethical guidelines for educational institutions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's original application materials and a direct, transparent communication with the applicant regarding any discrepancies. This approach upholds the integrity of the admissions process by ensuring that all decisions are based on verified information and that the university's policies are applied consistently and fairly. It aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and transparency in academic admissions, preventing any form of misrepresentation that could compromise the academic standing of the university or the qualifications of its students. An incorrect approach of fabricating supporting documents to meet admission criteria is a severe ethical and potentially legal failure. This constitutes academic dishonesty and fraud, directly violating the principles of fairness and meritocracy that underpin educational institutions, misleads the university about the applicant's true capabilities, and can lead to the admission of unqualified students, thereby devaluing the degrees awarded by Mustafa International University. Another incorrect approach of overlooking the discrepancies and proceeding with admission without verification is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold the university's admission standards. It creates a precedent for laxity in the admissions process and could lead to future challenges regarding the validity of admissions and the academic preparedness of admitted students. It also fails to address the underlying issue of the applicant's incomplete or potentially misleading application. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify the discrepancy and its potential implications. Second, consult the university's official admission policies and any relevant ethical codes of conduct. Third, gather all original documentation and compare it with the presented information. Fourth, communicate directly and professionally with the applicant to seek clarification or additional evidence. Fifth, if discrepancies persist and cannot be resolved ethically, a decision should be made based on the verified information and in strict adherence to university policy, prioritizing integrity and fairness above all else. Question 17. The investigation demonstrates that a prospective student's submitted essay for the Mustafa International University entrance exam exhibits significant thematic and structural similarities to publicly available online academic resources, raising concerns about potential plagiarism. The admissions committee is tasked with determining the appropriate course of action. Option A. Immediately reject the student's application based on the observed similarities, citing academic dishonesty without further inquiry. Option B. Disregard the similarities, assuming they are coincidental, and proceed with the student's application to avoid potential disputes or administrative complications. Option C. Initiate a formal academic integrity review process, gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing the student, and comparing the submitted work against university guidelines and external sources to determine if academic misconduct has occurred. Option D. Seek informal opinions from other university faculty members on the perceived similarities and make a decision based on a consensus of their informal feedback. Correct answer is C. Initiate a formal academic integrity review process, gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing the student, and comparing the submitted work against university guidelines and external sources to determine if academic misconduct has occurred. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The challenge lies in discerning genuine academic struggle from potential academic misconduct, requiring careful judgment and adherence to established university policies. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial review of the student's work and circumstances, guided by Mustafa International University's academic integrity policy. This policy, as stipulated for the entrance exam, likely outlines procedures for addressing suspected plagiarism or academic dishonesty, emphasizing due process and evidence-based decision-making. The correct approach would involve gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing the student to understand their perspective, and comparing the submitted work against established academic standards and university guidelines. This ensures that any decision is fair, transparent, and aligned with the university's commitment to upholding academic standards and providing an equitable learning environment for all students. An incorrect approach that involves immediately dismissing the student's application based on a single instance of perceived similarity without further investigation fails to uphold the principles of fairness and due process. This approach bypasses the established procedures for addressing academic concerns and could lead to an unjust outcome for the student. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the potential issue entirely to avoid conflict or administrative burden, directly violates the university's responsibility to maintain academic integrity. This abdication of duty undermines the credibility of the university's assessment processes and sets a dangerous precedent for future applicants. A further incorrect approach, which is to consult with other faculty members for informal advice without following the university's formal reporting and investigation protocols, risks introducing bias and procedural irregularities. While collaboration can be valuable, it must occur within the established framework to ensure confidentiality and adherence to policy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the nature of the concern and the relevant university policies. Second, gather all available evidence objectively. Third, engage with the student in a fair and transparent manner to allow them to present their case. Fourth, consult the appropriate university authorities or committees responsible for academic integrity. Finally, make a decision based on the evidence and in strict accordance with university regulations and ethical principles. Question 18. The analysis reveals that Mr. Hassan's personal statement for admission to Mustafa International University includes claims of academic awards and participation in research projects that are not reflected in his submitted transcripts or provided references. The admissions committee suspects potential misrepresentation. Which of the following actions best upholds the integrity of the admissions process and ensures fairness to the applicant? Option A. Initiate a formal verification process to confirm or refute Mr. Hassan's claims, following university policy for handling discrepancies before making a final decision. Option B. Immediately reject Mr. Hassan's application due to suspected misrepresentation. Option C. Proceed with admitting Mr. Hassan while noting the discrepancies for future reference. Option D. Directly confront Mr. Hassan with accusations of fabricating his academic achievements without prior verification. The correct answer is B. Immediately reject Mr. Hassan's application due to suspected misrepresentation. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a prospective student, Mr. Hassan, is seeking admission to Mustafa International University. He has provided a personal statement that appears to contain fabricated academic achievements. This situation presents a significant professional challenge for the admissions committee, requiring a delicate balance between upholding the integrity of the admissions process and fairly evaluating a candidate. The challenge lies in verifying information without being overly accusatory, ensuring a fair process for all applicants, and adhering to the university's stated admission policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective verification process. This means cross-referencing Mr. Hassan's claims with official transcripts and potentially seeking clarification from his previous institutions, if permissible under privacy regulations and university policy. If discrepancies are found, the university should follow its established procedures for handling suspected misrepresentation, which may involve requesting further documentation or a personal interview to address the concerns directly and transparently. This approach aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of fairness, honesty, and due diligence expected in academic admissions, ensuring that the university admits students based on genuine qualifications and potential, thereby maintaining its academic standards and reputation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject Mr. Hassan's application based solely on suspicion, without any attempt at verification. This fails to provide the applicant with due process and could lead to the rejection of a deserving candidate who may have made an error in their submission or has a valid explanation. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the potential discrepancies and admit Mr. Hassan without further investigation. This undermines the integrity of the admissions process, potentially admitting a student who does not meet the required academic standards and setting a precedent that could encourage future misrepresentation. A third incorrect approach would be to confront Mr. Hassan with accusations of fabrication without first gathering concrete evidence or following established university protocols for addressing such concerns. This could be perceived as unprofessional, unfair, and potentially lead to legal or reputational damage for the university. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence-based assessment, adherence to established policies and ethical codes, and a commitment to fairness and transparency. This involves 1. Identifying potential issues or discrepancies. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines for handling such situations. 3. Gathering objective evidence through appropriate verification methods. 4. Communicating concerns professionally and seeking clarification from the applicant, if necessary. 5. Making a decision based on the gathered evidence and established criteria, ensuring that the process is documented and defensible. Question 19. Compliance review shows that an applicant for the upcoming academic year has submitted academic transcripts that appear to have minor inconsistencies in formatting compared to official university records, though the grades themselves are within acceptable ranges. The admissions committee is aware of these minor formatting differences. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Mustafa International University admissions team to take in this situation? Option A. Accept the application with a verbal warning to the applicant regarding the importance of accurate documentation without a formal investigation. Option B. Accept the application as is, assuming the minor formatting differences are inconsequential and avoiding potential conflict. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the discrepancy in the submitted transcripts. Option D. Initiate a formal review process to investigate the formatting discrepancies, providing the applicant an opportunity to clarify or provide corrected documentation if necessary, in accordance with university admission policies. The correct answer is C. Immediately reject the application due to the discrepancy in the submitted transcripts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between a student's academic aspirations and the university's established admission policies, particularly concerning the integrity of submitted documentation. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions with its responsibility to uphold academic standards and prevent fraudulent applications. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the discrepancy, adhering strictly to Mustafa International University's established admission guidelines and academic integrity policies. This approach prioritizes due process for the applicant while safeguarding the university's reputation and the fairness of its admissions process. It aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for universities to have clear procedures for handling suspected academic misconduct. Specifically, it involves gathering all relevant evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on established criteria, ensuring that any action taken is consistent, transparent, and justifiable under university regulations. An incorrect approach that involves immediate rejection of the application without further inquiry fails to uphold the principle of due process. It bypasses the opportunity for the applicant to explain the discrepancy, potentially leading to an unfair outcome. This approach violates the ethical obligation to treat applicants fairly and may contravene university policies that mandate an investigation before disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the discrepancy to avoid potential conflict or negative publicity, compromises the university's commitment to academic integrity. This would set a dangerous precedent, encouraging future applicants to submit questionable documentation and undermining the credibility of the admissions process. It represents a failure to adhere to regulatory expectations for maintaining academic standards and ethical admissions practices. A further incorrect approach, such as accepting the application with a verbal warning without a formal review, also fails to address the issue adequately. While it attempts to resolve the situation, it lacks the rigor required to investigate and document potential academic misconduct. This can lead to inconsistencies in how similar situations are handled and does not provide a clear record of the university's stance on academic integrity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the potential issue and its implications for academic integrity and fairness. 2. Consulting the relevant university policies and admission guidelines. 3. Initiating a formal, impartial investigation to gather facts and evidence. 4. Providing the applicant with a clear explanation of the concerns and an opportunity to respond. 5. Making a decision based on the evidence and university policies, ensuring transparency and consistency. 6. Documenting the entire process and the final decision. Question 20. To address the challenge of a student suspected of academic dishonesty in a critical entrance examination, what is the most appropriate initial course of action for the examination proctor, strictly adhering to Mustafa International University's entrance exam regulations and code of conduct? Option A. Halt the entire examination session to address the alleged misconduct publicly and seek immediate consensus from other proctors on the appropriate disciplinary measure. Option B. Document the specific observations and behaviors that raise suspicion of academic dishonesty. Report these findings to the designated examination authority as per university protocol and await further instructions. Option C. Discreetly observe the student for the remainder of the examination to gather more evidence before reporting the suspicion to the examination board. Option D. Immediately confiscate the student's examination materials and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they will be investigated for academic misconduct. The correct answer is D. Immediately confiscate the student's examination materials and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they will be investigated for academic misconduct. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to succeed, coupled with potential personal circumstances, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Navigating this requires a deep understanding of Mustafa International University's academic policies and ethical guidelines, ensuring that decisions uphold the institution's values while also being fair to the student. The challenge lies in balancing support for the student with the non-negotiable requirement of academic honesty. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the student's alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to Mustafa International University's established academic integrity policy. This policy, as outlined in the university's student handbook and examination regulations, mandates a formal process for addressing academic dishonesty. This process typically includes notifying the student of the allegation, providing them with an opportunity to respond, gathering evidence, and then making a decision based on the findings. This approach is correct because it ensures due process, fairness, and consistency in the application of university rules, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the academic environment and the value of degrees awarded by Mustafa International University. It aligns with the university's ethical commitment to fostering an environment of honesty and scholarly pursuit. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that immediately imposes a severe penalty without a formal investigation fails to uphold the principles of due process and fairness. It bypasses the established procedures for addressing academic misconduct, potentially leading to an unjust outcome for the student and undermining the credibility of the university's disciplinary system. This violates the spirit and letter of Mustafa International University's academic integrity policy, which requires a systematic and evidence-based approach. An approach that dismisses the allegations without any form of inquiry, perhaps due to time constraints or a desire to avoid conflict, is also professionally unacceptable. This neglects the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and address potential breaches of integrity. It creates a perception that academic dishonesty is not taken seriously, which can erode the overall academic culture and the reputation of the institution. This directly contravenes the university's commitment to upholding scholarly ethics, an approach that involves discussing the specific details of the alleged misconduct with other students or faculty members not directly involved in the investigation, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and professional ethics. This can lead to reputational damage for the student and compromise the integrity of the investigation process. Mustafa International University's policies, like those of most academic institutions, emphasize the importance of maintaining privacy and confidentiality in such matters. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university settings must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical principles. This involves a commitment to fairness, impartiality, and due process. When faced with allegations of academic misconduct, the first step should always be to consult the relevant university policies and procedures. This ensures that all actions taken are within the defined regulatory framework. Subsequently, a systematic investigation should be initiated, gathering all necessary evidence and providing the accused student with a clear opportunity to present their case. Decisions should be based on the evidence and in accordance with the university's stated policies, ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the process. This structured approach mitigates the risk of bias and ensures that disciplinary actions are both just and defensible.